Right, we are going to get started. We have the treat today, hearings from Dr. Tom Hougen concerning his most recent foray into Ecuador and the ministry that he and his team carry out there. So he's got a wonderful slideshow for us and presentation. So we'll begin our time together this morning in prayer. Let's pray. Good and gracious God, we gather on this new day, thankful for your presence with us, thankful for this ongoing ministry with the people of Cristo, thankful for Tom's ministry in their midst and in ours. I pray, Lord, as we learn more about partners across the globe, that we would engage faithfully and fruitfully in ministry, in sharing your love, and in spreading good news for all. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, we are recording. And I'm going to screen share, Tom, so that we pull up your presentation. Okay?
Then I get the...
Yeah, then you'll get this. Share sound. Share this. This. Minimize this.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Okay.
And we started at the beginning.
Are we not at the beginning?
Well, that's the end, but that's okay. We finished on time. Any questions?
Then we have to go.
Yes, I just run it right to the top.
Let's do it backward now.
All right, now we just...
It's probably the influence.
All right, this is going to be a team approach.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is one of my first presentations about our Ecuador of work. Several years. Our last full team trip was in 2018, of which you have a handout. And there's another recent handout, but I haven't received it yet. So we have not been to Ecuador for 3 years, and COVID has been a terrible impact on Quito in particular. But the government response is quite good. And within the first year, after the first year, the vaccine was out, probably mid-90s% of the population was immunized. But early on, it was terrible. I mean, and a number of our team members in Quito have lost parents. And one of the cardiologist lost both of her parents. Anyway, so this, I think we'll go ahead. Okay, no? Are we ready to advance?
Just click it once.
I did.
Now try.
Okay. A little bit about Ecuador. This is the outline of talk. A little bit about Ecuador, history of Cristo and other services. We're going to talk about the school children that this church has supported for almost 20 years. We'll show some pictures of that. And the cardiac team, there's a couple of videos. One of the videos was put together by Cristo. Last week it was released. So it's the first time it's shown locally. Then we'll summarize and have questions and answers. Let's just say we'll have questions. All right.
Do we need a red carpet? Yelling of the movie?
You decide. Okay, Ecuador, 18 million people, about the size of Colorado. Major exports, legal exports are oil, bananas, flowers, chocolate. And of course, tourism. Galapagos, many of you may have been to the Galapagos and flown through Quito or Guayaquil, the other major city down on the coast. Tourism of the Amazon region, mountain climbing, and it's known for volcanoes and earthquakes and often political instability. This is not the part of Ecuador that we're going to be talking about. Okay, there we go. Now, where's Ecuador? Turns out that 95% of South America is east of Miami. And only just the very western edge of Ecuador is east of Miami. You can see on that map from Miami, we go straight south across Cuba, the Panama Canal, right into Ecuador. And I think this will show, do I click it again?
The mouse thing, yeah.
Is it a video?
Yeah, that's a video. And just this quick little Google Earth video of where Ecuador is. I don't get dizzy from this. And it takes you right into Ecuador, and you'll see it now. The Galapagos Islands are 600 miles straight west of Quito. So a little bit more back. If you count the Galapagos, they're west of Miami. Now, Quito is about 30 kilometers, 25, 30 miles south of the equator. Let's see, I want to go on. This is Cotopaxi, the tallest active volcano in the world. That's part of the southern part of Quito. You see, the mountain is usually covered in snow, but the volcano ash has blackened the snow. This is a volcano, Lava Pichincha, which erupted on October 5th, 1999. Our team left on October 4th, 1999. And it was billowing ash every day. And so the cars and so the streets were covered with ash. You had to wear a mask wherever you went. And it finally erupted on the 5th of October. And they were having security concerns in the city. There were evacuation routes depending on which way the lava would flow. And every school had videos every day telling the children how to get out of the way. Fortunately, there wasn't much lava, and most of it went west away from the city. Here's Quito, 2 million people. It's in a valley at 10,000 feet. To the west, the mountains are 14,000 feet, and to the east, about 11,000. So it's in a valley north-south. And it's part of Old Quito is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which has cleaned it up quite a bit. These are flags from Ecuador Independence Day. There's the city with Cotopaxi in the background. It's 45 miles, 50, 60 kilometers from the city. Again, it depends on which way the lava would flow, it would be in danger. Okay. For Cristo, in 1978, Pope John Paul II came to Boston and had an audience with some physicians who were interested in doing international work. And there was a order of priests called the Mission of St. James in Boston that had a brotherhood of priests in Guayaquil, Ecuador. So these physicians got in touch with the local priest, St. James, and then they connected the group with the folks in Guayaquil and set up some work. Now, over the years, For Cristo has provided many, many services, not just cardiology. We represent 2 or 3% of the budget, cardiology. But these are healthcare clinics in Guayaquil serving the poor. And they include nutrition. They teach mothers how to grow vegetables out of about 30 square feet of land. And it's enough to get some fresh vegetables. It's their growth initiative, you might say, at our church. They have a prenatal and early childhood care. There's a dental clinic, as you can see, they run a TB and HIV surveillance program. There's a girls' self-esteem program. It's very important. So adolescent girls meet and they talk about their ambitions and how they can get there. So you interview these girls, 13, 14 years old, and what do they want to be? They want to be astronauts. They want to be judges. doctors, lawyers, teachers, instead of having children at 16 or 17. So there's kind of doing that. And also along the same line, there's a women's empowerment group to teach women careers outside of the home so they can have some independent income, how to sew, knit, do a computer, cook, hairdress, that kind of business. And Fort Cristo supports that. Now, my first visit was 1989 when the group in Boston said, you've got to come to Ecuador to help the children with cardiac disease. They were just dying in hospitals. The hospitals were very poor. This one hospital we started working in had intermittent electricity, intermittent water. The kids lived in basically cell blocks almost. It's just terrible. Actually, in 1992, Dorian Gensler and Channel 4 went down and filmed a program with us. It was a fundraising program for the channel. It really showed how crude it was. And Doreen was the host of that. We worked with her for about a week. Then in 1994, we quit that hospital and moved to Quito, which is up in the mountains, the capital city. You go from the coast to 10,000 feet. And Susan remembers one of our trips, we couldn't land in Quito.
Oh, yes.
Variety of reasons. And then we had to land in Guayaquil and take a 9-hour bus ride through the mountains. And Susan sat in front of the bus. And I was afraid, I was in the back. I mean, the mountains, no guardrails. No, yeah. Just try to keep the driver in. If you fly, it's a 30-minute flight. So now this is a few highlights of this school that this church has supported these students. It's an elementary school in an area called Jaime Roldos. It's in a very poor area north of the city. 200 students, a Catholic school, and there's tuition required to go to it. So the nuns select 5 children who are at risk that have no way of going to the school. Otherwise, they would be literally in a one-room schoolhouse with benches and pencils and papers. So this church, the mission committee and this church fund students, each student for 5 years. So they know they can pretty much get through, or they go on to the junior high, which is a better education. And the tuition is tuition fees. I mean, the sports tuition fees, uniforms, books, and a lunch. And without this support, they would not get this kind of education at all. Now, this is the neighborhood the kids walk from. There you are. That's where they come from, and they come clean. They never miss school. Here are 6 students. I said we support 5.
Yes.
And we've supported some of these. I've seen these kids grow up. We haven't seen them for 3 years. They've gone from this size to this size. Some are going to be graduating. Now there are 6 because one of our teen nurses from Boston supports one of the students. Now there are the soccer balls. There's going to be a theme. Soccer balls, stuffed animals, and beanie babies. All right. Soccer balls are probably one of the most cherished presents a child in any Latin American country could have. These kids play soccer in the alleys in the street with rags that are tied together. Here they have brand new soccer balls that people in this church have donated. And it's an incredible possession. Now, what we did is give each class got a soccer ball. So there are 10 soccer balls going to the school. We didn't give them to the individual kids. And now this is a quick little video short of what happens when we released the soccer video. Now, this is the playground. You can see 2 balconies, classroom. You walk into the classroom. And when these kids were playing, other students looking at the playground, watching these kids. So they realize that he's.
I think you better
Well, Ecuador did
He's going to do us a video here.
this one. And here are the kids leaving the school. They all have uniforms. They're all happy, all organized. They're remarkable. The nuns do it. It's a terrific job. Terrific job.
How many people compete for those 5 spots?
Well, there are 200 students, and the nuns pick the children who are at most at risk for not being able to continue their education. So these are that's how they're selected. Now, this church also donated children's books. And here's Susan is sorting through some of the books in this little school library, and each child got a book. Then the rest were donated to the library. Now, the team, I'll just quickly mention, our team comes from many leading cardiovascular institutes in the United States. These people are tops in their field. And you can see they're from Boston, Nashville, Orlando, Washington. You don't need to go through the names. Nashville, Washington, Gainesville. Can you see that's me there? Okay, they all have a job, but this is mine. Now, I'm only allowed to wear this hat in Ecuador. You'll never see it at my home. So this is what we do during the week. We arrive on a Friday afternoon. For various reasons, we have the schedule set. So if there are particularly hurricanes in Miami, we have a little fudge time. And that's happened. We've gotten delayed because of hurricanes. So we go to Quito at 10,000 feet. Saturday is all day working. The Ecuadorian doctors and nurses come in on their holiday, Saturday, and we examine patients, set up schedules for surgery, interventions, and other tests. Then Sunday, we have a field day. We go out and tour, and it's a good way of the team to get together. We haven't worked together for 3 years. We're 3 rookies on the team, so we get together and get caught up. And it's a really good way of not having to chit chat during the week. We get it all out of the way on a Sunday. And then Monday through Friday, about 8 in the morning till 6 at night. And almost every night, one of us goes back to check on the patients. And then Friday afternoon, we have a luncheon with the staff and the nurses and everybody, because it allows us to conclude this very busy and stressful week on a high note. And it is stressful. I mean, we do have losses. Not everybody survives. Everybody's working hard. And to end the trip, together, and the Ecuadorians and the Americans, it's a good way to end. So we leave feeling good about each other. And that's what we do. And then we have a Friday night dinner where I give awards to the rookies. And then we leave early Saturday morning, get up at 3 o'clock and take the bus to the airport.
And Tom, you'll mention the Albert Einstein High School in terms.
It's coming.
Oh, good.
It's coming. Yeah, good. Well, you can interrupt, by the way. Not always. You can interrupt. Yes.
Patients are you helping in a typical week?
We do 50 or 60 sonograms and consultations all over the hospital. We did 6 interventional catheterizations. We did only 4 surgeries because the patients that were selected by the Ecuadorians were very complex. And they were long operations, which meant they had long stays in their limited ICU. And so it's an area that we're going to be addressing. And I can just tell you why. The Ecuadorians can do some surgery, and these are complex operations, so they get the child to live 2 to 3 years. Then the next stage of surgery is very complex. And they're really life-limiting diseases these children have. They're born with them. but some are just very complex. Even in the United States, it would be at high risk.
Mm.
So we're trying to tell the Ecuadorians that when you see a baby born with this complex problem, don't start doing anything. Because once you do one operation, the easy operation, it's hard to stop. And it's very difficult to say, in the circumstances in Ecuador, if your child is born with half a heart, do nothing. Mm. It's very hard. And sometimes that's my job to tell our team you can't do anything. Mm. And the children who can survive with one operation that's curative, I mean, I've survived 60, 70 years. That's what we need to concentrate on. Mm. And you can turn those cases over much faster. They're out of the ICU quickly. You could do 10 operations instead of 4. But it's a tough problem. Yes.
Oh, Cristo has been in existence for 30 years or so.
About 40.
How many doctors have been in it from the beginning?
For the cardiac team? The cardiac team?
Yes.
I think I brought 120 different doctors and nurses over the years.
And how many of those have repeated every one of those 30 years or
you'll see some of them 25 years.
Okay.
Yeah, then we try to get new patients, because not everybody can work on the schedule we have. They have other commitments and travel and families, and and everybody this is their vacation time for the Americans. So that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. So here we are landing in Miami, and you'll see one of the folks with a hockey bag. That's how we carry a lot of our equipment. In the old days, we used to take 20 or 30 boxes of equipment. The hospitals upgraded this. We don't need to. So now most of those big hockey bags are full of stuffed animals and beanie babies and soccer balls. We stay in a Holiday Inn Express. Looks more fancy there. And that picture on the right is taken on the afternoon that we landed. And every day after that, it rained. Mm-hmm. So that's looking west at mountains that are about 14,000 square feet. And just some shots of the city of Quito. This is one of the flowers in a cathedral. This little girl is in the open air market that they have. It's about 1 square block. It's actually very controlled. It does have shelter so if it rains, the goods don't get wet. And it's patrolled by the cops, police, because it's kind of an open area. And this little girl was hiding way in the back of her mother's stall. And that's how she spends her day, as her mother tries to sell these different handmade goods. Now, this is our team concluding one of our Sunday trips. And we're at the Mitad del Mundo, the center of the earth. And that red line is the equator. Mm-hmm. So this is we're coming back to the hospital after an all-day trip. Over on the left is the equator as it was designated by the Frenchmen in 1737. They built this big monument. Well, they missed it by about 500 feet. So once they had computer navigations and so forth, they realized the equator was off. So here's Susan and I at the equator. Now, we've been married almost 53 years, but Susan is standing in the northern hemisphere. Yeah. I'm in the southern hemisphere. Yeah. We've never been separated by a hemisphere. This is the hospital, big government hospital, 350 beds, poorly staffed, poorly equipped, and overworked. And this is a picture, it's of a painting that's outside the operating room. When you go into the operating room, the nurses and doctors going in for surgery, and the patients see this picture. Now we're going to show some children, and you can see why we love going back. So these are the flowers of Ecuador. And each of the picture of the children, almost all of them have a beanie baby, which were donated by a member of St. Peter and Paul's
Up on River Road.
Yeah, whether you know, Orthodox Church. He donated 400 brand new Beanie Babies. Still have their tags.
Yeah.
So, and another group in Boston, in Washington, donated stuffed animals, big stuffed animals. And then we have soccer balls and books. That's what the children remember. They don't remember me. They remember the soccer ball. So this girl on the left is waiting surgery, and a little girl on the right is being evaluated. This is a girl on the left waiting for in the clinic to be seen. Another little girl. They all have Beanie Babies, and we carry them in our pockets. We give them out all the time. This little boy is recovering from a big operation. He has several stuffed animals in his bed. The ICU, the cardiac ICU, is better equipped now. We used to bring lots of monitors and all kinds of support, and the hospital's updated that, so we don't have to do that. And that's Jose Hernandez Rivas, talking to a patient in the playroom, telling him about the surgery he's about to have. And Susan spent some time up there also talking to and visiting the kids. More of the children, they all have Beanie Babies or stuffed animals. The little girl on the right is waiting her surgery. Those fold out chairs is where her mother will sleep every night. And there's like 6 chairs, and there's a parent in every one of them all night. That's where they wait. Oops, hang on. This little girl also is waiting for a procedure. She's got her stuffed animal with her mom by her side. So boy, he came to the clinic. He's healthy. He had a murmur. He doesn't need any work done. So he has his soccer ball. And 2 of our team members, Jorge Garcia from Orlando on the left, and Marga Rivera on the right. She's from Boston. So this boy's not happy. I gave him a soccer ball. Well, he thought he had to give it back. I said, no, it's yours. Big smile. But I missed the picture. And this boy on the right got a soccer ball. There's one of the Ecuadorian doctors. If you would look carefully on his chest, he has a scar. He had successful surgery a few years ago. This is this is a story about this little boy. He had surgery 2 or 3 years ago, did fine. He's born with a syndrome called Hougen. He has no forearms and no fingers. No fingers. And you can see he can barely hold a soccer ball. And soccer is the only sport he could ever play. He can't catch, he can't throw, but he can kick. And there he is, and you can see his mask even had soccer balls. So he was a big fan of strip. And they were just teaching the Ecuadorians better echo techniques. And I think you're going to see this again in the video. This little boy had successful surgery and got a soccer ball. I get a lot of soccer balls. It's great. This is Jose, one of our new people, talking with one of the nurses. To the left is Gerardo Davalos, head of surgery at this hospital. Now he has a private practice in a very luxurious private hospital about 5 miles away. He donates his time to this charity hospital. He and I have worked together for 35 years, I think. And Dave Bichelle from Nashville, from Vanderbilt, discussing. There's Lorena, she runs the ICU, talking to our team members on the right. They're in the cardiac ICU, making rounds. There's Dave Bichelle and Dot, she's from Boston. In the back, in that whiteboard, he outlined the kind of valve surgery he's going to do on this patient, which went very well. We're having a discussion. Every morning, we start the day with a quick team meeting to go over cases, plan. And then we have a same kind of meeting at the end of the day to review the cases that day and what went right, what went wrong, and then the cases for the next day. The schedule changes all the time. This is in the catheterization laboratory. This is terrific. This hospital has one. They do interventional procedures in the cath lab. We used to do them in outside hospitals, which was really kind of crazy, taking the patients by ambulance all over the city. This little boy had major surgery. On the left is Marissa Mize, one of our longtime nurses, and Dot on the right. You can see in the background all those monitors, which were now upgraded by the hospital. Some of our team members have been with us at least 25 years on the left, and there's Gerardo and me. Yeah, another little girl with her stuffed animal. She had some kind of procedure the next day. This is the general clinic. It's very clean, organized. Children are all well behaved. I mean, you don't hear screaming or yelling. The parents have the children clean and well dressed. Parents come in semi-rags. The kids are always presentable. They really love their children. We have volunteers from this Jewish high school, Albert Einstein High School in Quito. There's a long-standing Jewish community going back to the 1500s in Quito. So these students volunteer. It's their community service. And a week with us, they get a little certificate. They're very good translating. They speak English, sometimes French, sometimes German, sometimes Spanish. They all speak Spanish. They travel widely. They've all been to the United States, Europe. They were just terrific young people. And they also spent some time inflating soccer balls. They were just terrific to work with. And now we're getting toward the afternoon of our team breakup lunch, which is a time to get together and look forward for the next trip. So these are some of the people. The guy in the black shirt, third from the left, is the hospital administrator. I always meet with them. They come out, have to make good, that's the only political thing I do is and so forth. More of the team. Everybody's feeling good. We got through the week. The guy on the right is the anesthesiologist from Boston Children's. The guy with the dark shirt on the left is the head of cardiology of the hospital. Those two young ladies next to Al are Ecuadorian anesthesiologists. And again, we get presents. They give us, people holding brown bags are scarves that the hospital gave us. Again, it's really good to get together at the end of the week. Again, it's been stressful. We have some winners, we have some losers, but we end the week, together, smiling, looking forward to the next trip. So this is the team picture of the last evening we were in Ecuador before we head out. Now, this is going to be a 11-minute video, which will end at 10:30. This is made by Port Cristo about this year's trip we had in October. I had nothing to do with it, except I did the interviews of the people in the hospital. Yeah, this just came out last week. So James got it into the program. Yeah. Now, some of it's going to be in Spanish, but it's okay. And you don't have to read this. It's just an introduction.
We've come back finally after a little over 2 years because of the pandemic. And the pandemic has had terrible impact on all of us. Here at Baca, the team has continued to be very motivated, and they're working hard with restrictions that they've had, just like we've had everywhere else in the world. But I think the needs have not changed for the patients.
There are myriad very complicated things that come down the line. There are children and families who come from hundreds of miles away with no resources and very complicated heart problems. And we're here to lend our bigger experience to helping to achieve some of those accomplishments too.
The essence and the willingness of the team to get better all the time is there, and they really enjoy having our visits here because they know that they will be learning from us as well. The impact that we have now coming back to continue with the training, because some of those things have been lost over the years, getting back into a steady pace, I think, is going to be very important for patients here at Baca Ortiz.
This is my first trip to the Baca Ortiz with the team from Port Cristo. I think when you come to an experience like this, expectations aren't helpful. You come, you see what's there, you meet the people, you get a sense on the ground. The team from Port Cristo and the team, the medical team, gave me some indication, but frankly, we hadn't been here in 3 years due to COVID, so I think we all didn't know what to expect.
It is my first time coming to Ecuador. As soon as I walk into the door and I saw all those cute little faces, kids everywhere, family, parents, I just felt overwhelmed and at the same time happy knowing that I came here to help families. I've been here helping the cardiologists improve their image quality and lending a hand, scanning some of the kids while they are busy with other families.
We come here for a week, but they still have to see patients every day because there are a lot of kids that need to be seen and taken care of. So I understand that it's very difficult for all of them to, close the clinics and work with us for one whole week. So, but the doctors that work with us during this week, they dedicate, most of their time to find interesting cases or find patients that have complex anatomy that need to be reviewed. Sometimes they need a second opinion on a particular congenital heart disease.
On this trip, there is a little 6-year-old boy who's had very complex heart disease and had a big operation. The mother has slept at the hospital since the surgery, has eaten probably food from the street vendors, and she's here 24 hours a day. And it's difficult because in spite of the complex surgery that Dr. Bichel did, very good job, the natural history of his problem may not allow him to survive. And that's difficult for us to accept because in a way we failed. But that's the nature of the business we are in, and we accept it and move on and hope to do better with the next patient.
In the cath lab during this week, we've treated a couple of children who had problems that essentially our procedure this week cured them for life. And that's remarkable. Knowing that this child is going to grow up and be a contributing member to Ecuadorian society is huge. And then there are other kids who still have a lot of ongoing cardiac care that they're going to need. And this cath they had, the procedure we did, was just one part of that. But if we can give good information, optimizing the next procedure, optimizing the outcomes, that's why we're here. That's why we do it.
When I came in the first day, and after we were done doing a patient, Dr. Hougen gave him a football. And when I saw the happiness on that cute little face, totally make my day. It made me feel warm inside. Even I was feeling emotional, to be honest, because I see how happy they get with the little things that we give them. And to me, that was one of the best moments of being in Quito.
Estamos todos muy agradecidos y definitivamente nos han dejado muchísimas cosas positivas al equipo en general. Hemos trabajado un poco más, muy unidos estos días, y eso se ha notado mucho, incluso con el equipo de cirugía, que no siempre es tan fácil el trabajo en equipo en el hospital en general.
I think the collaboration between us coming here, and the Ecuadorian doctors have been very productive over the years. The quality of the imaging has improved over the years, and I think there is always room for improvement in different aspects.
We put all our effort to provide the years available to these children, and it's been very satisfying. However, there's more that we can do.
I think over the next year, things that the team at BACA would really benefit from would be better ways to do echocardiograms. Echocardiograms are ultrasounds of the heart that let us cardiologists really determine what the cardiac lesion is. And those are done with ultrasound machines that are specific for the heart. I think they need one of these machines in the intensive care unit and the cardiac surgery suites. And not only it's an issue of getting the images, but we should have a modality in which we can review those images with the team so we can make a diagnosis.
Some of the challenges in monitoring that the staff here faces could easily be solved by being able to purchase an additional transducer, which is not expensive. It's pretty cheap and could make a significant difference in the outcome of a patient, of being able to survive a surgery versus not. There's end tidal monitors. Every time we make changes on a ventilator, they actually end up having to rely on blood gases or just clinical impression, and again, that's like trying to walk in the dark. Having an end tidal monitor would allow them to be able to see the changes in real time of any settings they change. Those are critical things, critical parts of what we do in patients who are very sick after surgery and where you don't really have a lot of room for error. And so the cumulative effect of those little things that can be monitored more closely can actually impact a patient's outcome.
Yo creo que una de las cosas importantes por el futuro de nuestra relación con el equipo clínico y quirúrgico de Por Cristo, en los siguientes meses necesitamos mejorar las técnicas de diagnóstico, sobre todo en aquellos pacientes complejos, porque esa es la base de lo que nosotros podemos hacer luego por los pacientes. Los procesos no deben ser de año en año, pero debe haber comunicarnos, que lo hemos hecho en el pasado, pero de una forma muy establecida, muy regulada. Tener comunicaciones de discusión de casos en el tiempo, más frecuentes, no cada año, no recoger los pacientes en un año para verlos al final, pero probablemente verlos a lo largo del año utilizando las tecnologías de comunicación que hay ahora.
Otra es la posibilidad de uno poder asistir donde ustedes trabajan y nosotros también poder ver lo que hacen, que creo que es mucho mejor y enriquecedor para nosotros. Esa sería una forma. Y no sé si hay la posibilidad de que puedan venir por lo menos otros 2 veces al año aquí a la institución, que creo que es mucho mejor también.
No perdamos esa comunicación, esa interrelación, para que nuestro país y nuestro hospital sea beneficioso para la atención de los pacientes pediátricos, especialmente a los pacientes con problemas cardíacos.
When our team leaves back to the United States with all the abundance that we have in our practices, we take with us an appreciation for the dedication of the people here and their resourcefulness to do as much as possible with very little. There is no jet lag between here and the United States, but there is place lag that it certainly takes me several weeks to get used to the abundance and privilege, abundance of material and opportunity in the United States, and really the privilege of living in the United States.
I am looking forward to being part of the team for Por Cristo. And I really wish that I can come for many years because this is an experience personally for me to give back to my country and to the institution that trained me as a pediatrician. as a physician. So this is for me a very important part of my year planning the Por Cristo visit, and I really wish I can come for many years.
I've been coming here off and on for decades and have seen the contrast from before to now, and each time we come here I feel like we learn something, and each time I come here we have great conversations with the faculty and staff here to realize that they take something away from our visits too. And it's gratifying to see that progress over the years. They can do a lot more here independently. They welcome us, and we can clearly say that many lives have been saved by Por Cristo's investment in these annual visits and exchange of information. There's no price to put on saving a child's life, but I can tell you that many have been saved by the effort that's supported by Por Cristo.
One last slide. We do the last slide.
Just hit the, move it forward.
Okay, you can escape first.
What do I do?
Escape, then there.
Escape.
Yes, we can keyboard.
Oh, okay.
How many other practices do they have?
It's all right. Yeah, the last slide. There it is. I just wanted to. Okay. Questions?
How many other practices do they have other than cardiac?
How many other
practices, other than cardiac?
Teams.
Por Cristo teams?
Yeah.
No. Oh, we're the only medical team now. 30 years ago, they had other teams, but the hospital was able to pick up that support, and they're not needed anymore. But cardiac is high resource, high technical things, and it's Karen.
Yeah. What is the incidence of cardiac problems in children in Ecuador compared to the U.S.?
And so what's the incidence of congenital heart disease? That is heart disease that children are born with. It's the same all over the world. It's maybe 3 to 5 children per 1,000 live births have complex heart disease that they will die in the first year of life unless there's something done. So that means that 99, make a number, 0.5% of live births don't have congenital heart disease. And you say, well, wait a minute, you're spending all this time and effort for just a little bit of number of patients. Yes. However, what is done in Ecuador, we train nurses and doctors and technicians. They leave, get a better job somewhere else, and take that knowledge and skill with them. So it spreads throughout the community. And so they learn how to take care of very sick patients. They may not be just heart patients, but other kinds of patients. And the thing about congenital heart disease, unless you act when they're young, it's over. So you got to identify them early, do the right kind of care. Robert.
Yeah, I mean, this came in late, but what is the primary goal? Are you guys there to teach like techniques or methods or whatnot to them, or are you there to care for patients, or is it a mix?
We're there to teach.
Okay.
Because when we're gone, they got to carry on.
Yeah.
And they've done a great job.
Got it.
But, they need more. They all say, well, come back next month. Let's, can't do that. But what we want to do to help them is to fund travel and expenses to send one of their young up-and-coming surgeons to go to Argentina, Buenos Aires, or someplace to learn. They come to the United States, the language might hold them back a little bit, unless they go to Houston or Miami, but so if we could fund them for 6 months and really get some good training, that would help. So the idea is to teach them to carry on without us. Yes, Val.
What interactions, either positive or negative, does your team or you have with the government?
So the question is, we have issues with the government? The federal government is not a real friend of the United States. In the year 2000, the World Bank said because of inflation was like 100% or more, they turned to dollars. So the Ecuadorians are looking at George Washington on all the bills, no more of their old president. So we kind of had to step in. Inflation was terrible. When we first went to Ecuador, $1 would give you 625 sucres. That was the exchange. And in 2000, it was $1 for 25,000 sucres. I mean, it was just crazy. We used to go out for dinner with 10 people, and the meal would be 2.5 million sucres. Crazy. So they don't particularly like the federal government, doesn't particularly like they want to export their oil to other countries and so forth. But the local government, particularly the bishop in Quito and the mayor of Quito, and those people are fine with us. But I can tell you, we do not run around with American flags on our back. We don't do that. Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, I guess you mentioned this before, but I'm curious as to over the period that you've been involved with this, which is wonderful work, by the way, Tom and your team. The training part, which was talked about a little bit in the video, but is there a way that you could quantify or at least qualitatively assess over that period of time how much impact this team has had on the development of the local medical talent that's here? You mentioned a few things along the way, but that seems to be a tremendous impact that you all have had. I'm just curious as to how you might express that.
Well, if you look at surgical outcomes, you started going there, whatever surgery they could do, 3 out of 4 died. And they used to do 25 operations a year. It's terrible. And lately they do about 200 operations, and the mortality is about 20%. So it's improved, but that 20% is way too high. And again, I was saying earlier in the talk, and you heard it here, as Dave Bichelle said, they're very complex cases that really shouldn't be pursued. You really should let the children die early in life before you start on a plan that's going to be life-limiting and huge resources. And it's a very tough question. So we need to change that a little bit. Yeah. So there's another question. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask about sustainability and I think you alluded to education. I'm going to ask you about hindsight. Many years of experience, the costs in terms of human experience, so much. How would you do this differently? Because it's like one would say, if there's no water, let's build a well. But could we be more innovative? So is there anything you could do differently in this case, hindsight?
Yeah.
In terms of innovation.
Yeah, and looking back on the years, the obstacles that have prevented us from making the progress we had hoped for is working in a government-funded hospital is very poorly equipped. Fortunately, because of our effort, we have a nice operating room and some equipment now in the ICU. It's really much better. It's the education. There's barriers. How are we going to support people to improve their talents at another hospital and have them come back? They had a $5,000 echo machine, $8,000 echo machine a couple of years ago over there. It basically didn't know how to turn the thing on. It wasn't set right. So our biomedical engineers spent a day and a half tuning this beautiful machine, of which now they use maybe 20%, 30% of its capability. But it's a matter of educating, and you can't remove the people from the hospital and say, come to the States for a year. You can't do that. You really need to bring people down and have them stay for 6 months and show these people how to use all this equipment. Now, the surgical experience should be done at a big surgical center, then bring those people back. But that's the key. And we don't get any support from the government. I have friends who go to Africa and do some of this, and the government, the prime minister of the country greets them at the airport and hosts them, do all this. And we're just staying under the radar in Ecuador. And it's a problem. The government turns over. We have a new minister of health every 6 months, a new minister, the director of the hospital every 3 months. Continuity is tough. It's amazing continuity with the staff. They've been there for years. So that's the obstacle. So if I had to do it again, I would educate the people, more and more of the education right away. However that's done. Get support, bring somebody down there for a month. It's kind of tough. Or bring them up to the States or to a Latin American country. We got to wrap it up. Greg.
Tom, can you comment on how we as individuals can contribute to Port Cristo to what you see us doing?
Mind doing that? Yes, let's see. Where's that? Next to the last slide. Yeah, Port Cristo is started out being kind of a spinoff of the Archdiocese of Boston, but for the last 15 years, we're completely independent. We require just existing on donations. So that's it. I mean, it needs financial support like any other NGO. Like I said, most of it goes to the taking care of the children in Guayaquil with their maternal health business. Cardiology is 2 or 3% of the entire budget. Operating budget of Port Cristo is about $600,000 to $700,000. And so we do our best to raise money wherever we can.
So if you go to the website, it would tell you.
Yes, yeah, I have a handout. This is the handout of our trip, the last one in 2018.
No, I got it.
You got it.
Okay. Tom, I have a question.
Yes.
There are two things. One, at the end with Dr. Davalos, who's chief of surgery.
Yeah.
And I think his idea and Dr. Bichel is that more continuous communication, given the the technical innovations.
Yeah.
So one of the initiatives, as I understand it, is to communicate more frequently over the course of the year. And then also the fact that there have been significant improvements over the course of the years in the cath lab, in the surgical theater, so that, and you have brought physicians over this country to do some training as well. So there has been quite a bit of interchange and quite a bit of improvement in the facilities due to Port Cristo.
Yeah, well, yes, that's right. So there's been progress, but like anyone else, they want to do more. The Ecuadorians read the literature. They know what else is up there. And they want to try. They want to try bigger operations. Can't support them. Can't do that. So, with progress comes responsibility for the next step. We've tried to have what do they call it? Not kind of Zoom business set up, but it costs some money to do that. In the hospital, not interested in doing that. We tried to have some data exchanges. So we do have some with the Spanish-speaking folks in Boston and Nashville and here in Washington. But they're not technically quite up to speed. Yeah, that's been a problem.
But it's coming.
It's coming,
And the other thing I wanted to mention, two of the physicians, Dr. Pera and one of the other physicians who are at Vanderbilt, also are from Quito, Ecuador. So there is
there's one
strong commitment and understanding of the culture, which I think is really important.
Yes, David Pera, who spoke, both of them spoke in that last video. He's from Vanderbilt. He's got family in Quito. His father died of COVID. He's got a brother living there, and he trained at this hospital, and he's a terrific physician. And Jorge Garcia from Orlando, similarly, he has relatives who grew up and trained at that hospital. So those guys are terrific to have. They know the politics, and they know the culture. They know how to keep me out of trouble.
Yeah.
It has worked so far. Yeah, I think we need to close.
We do, and we want to say thank you so much.